My dear friends, today I want to speak with you about something that sooner or later touches every one of us: death. I ask you to listen to these words with a calm heart and without fear, because what we call death is not the end of life. It is a change of state, another step on a journey that began long before our birth. In anthroposophy, we have learned to see the human being as much more than flesh and bones. We have a physical body, but we are also made of life forces, of soul, and of spirit. When the moment of death comes, we leave only the physical body behind. Our consciousness, our true self, continues its path and crosses the threshold between the visible and the invisible world. This threshold, that sacred moment between the last breath and the awakening in the spiritual world, is surrounded by mystery for most people, but it does not need to be feared. What awaits us on the other side is not a dark abyss, but a living realm in which the human spirit experiences a reality just as real as this one. Though invisible to the eyes of the body, throughout my life, I have approached this transition with seriousness and reverence, and I can say, when we die, we do not vanish. We undergo a transformation. Like the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly, we set aside one form in order to take on another. What do we carry with us? We take with us all that we have done out of love, all that we have learned in our soul, all that we have transformed within ourselves. Our material possessions remain behind, but the good we have given to others, our pure thoughts, our true feelings, these remain with us. Many people, especially those over 50, begin to sense this threshold more clearly, not as a tragic premonition, but as a kind of inner call. And this call invites us to live with more meaning, more presence, and more soul. Anthroposophy does not impose dogma. It invites careful observation, and if we observe with an awakened heart, we can see that nature, the rhythms of life, aging, and even illness speak to us of a cycle, a quiet preparation for our return to the spiritual world. When we speak of death, we are truly speaking of life, of its continuation and its meaning. And we are reminded of how important it is, now while we live, to nurture what will go with us when that moment comes. This is not about doctrine or promises. It is about a path of awareness. And so I invite you, let us walk together for a few minutes in reflection on what happens beyond the threshold of death, not in fear, but in reverence. Who you are does not end with the body. And the question I leave with you today, at the beginning of this path, is this: if life continues after death, what are you cultivating that will truly go with you? Today I would like to speak with you about the first moments after death, about that sacred transition when the human being begins to loosen from the earthly body. When the last breath is taken, the soul leaves the physical body, but it is not immediately separated. The forces that once kept us alive, that made the heart beat, guided digestion, filled our thoughts with life. These forces, which I call the etheric body, remain connected to us for a short while. The physical body lies there, still and motionless. Yet life itself has not simply vanished. In fact, during the first hours after death, the spiritual world is very near. The human being is in a state of transition, where the visible and the invisible still touch each other. The etheric body, the bearer of our life forces, begins to loosen, but not all at once. For a time, it still surrounds us like a delicate veil. During this period, the soul often experiences a panorama of the life just lived. Everything we felt, thought, and did now appears before us as one great living picture, not as judgment, but as understanding, we experience what we gave to others, and also what we took away. And we see it not only from our own perspective, but also through the feelings of the other person. This is not punishment, but revelation, a deep insight that helps us to know ourselves more truly. In this stage, the human being is no longer bound to space and time in the same way. He is lifted out, but not yet completely free. The connection to the physical is still present, though it grows finer and finer. Slowly, like mist in the morning light, the etheric body begins to dissolve. This process is significant, for the way we have lived, whether in harmony or in inner conflict, now shapes how gentle or difficult this transition will be. My friends, this means how we live influences how we die, and how the path continues after death. If in life we cultivate rhythm, love, and awareness in our relationship to the world, then we carry an inner order that makes this crossing easier in our modern world, where so much is mechanical and rushed. It is easy to forget that the human being is a spiritual being. But in death, this truth reveals itself with the greatest clarity. So I ask you today, have you ever wondered what your inner picture will be when you look back? Will it be calm and full of light, or restless and scattered? It is worth asking this question while we are still here, for the path after death begins with what we prepare in life. After a person has taken their last breath and the separation from the physical body has begun, there comes a special moment, a deeply moving experience that shows us with great clarity what our life truly was at its core. I am speaking of the life panorama, that review which rises within us like a great spiritual painting dot in the first hours after death. While the etheric body has not yet fully detached, we experience our whole life in a remarkable way, not as a mere memory, but as a living reality. Everything we thought, felt, spoke, and did appears before our soul. But unlike in earthly life, we do not see it only from our own point of view. We also experience the effects of our actions through the feelings of others. If, for example, we spoke a harsh word, we not only see it from our side, but we feel the pain it caused in the other. If we brought joy, we sensed the warmth we gave. We become witnesses to the traces of our own life in the light of truth. This is not judgment. No one condemns us in this moment. There is no external power passing a verdict. It is our own higher being that looks upon our life with love and clarity. And it is for this reason that this review touches us so deeply. It speaks directly to the essence of our conscience, not to condemn, but to help us understand and to learn. In this vision, there is no room for illusion. Everything appears exactly as it was, not as we might have wished it to be. And yet, this very honesty carries a sacred power. We see where we lived in harmony with the good and where we failed. The panorama is like a mirror of the inner human being, honest, quiet, and vast. Some may ask, how is it possible to live through an entire lifetime in just a few hours? In this state, time as we know it no longer applies. There is no longer a linear experience of past, present, and future. Instead, everything stands before us at once, as though on an inner canvas, yet in an order that allows our consciousness to grasp, to feel, and to understand. This review has its own duration. It lasts as long as we were awake during our earthly life, but without the times of sleep. For in sleep we are not fully conscious on earth, and so those hours remain outside. In this time after death, when the panorama unfolds, we are fully awake, filled with a spiritual clarity often lacking during life. And yet, My friends, there are people who have sensed this panorama while still alive in near-death experiences, or in moments when the veil grows thin. These experiences give us glimpses of what awaits us in the transition. This review is not given for suffering, but for truth. It prepares us, helps us to process, to release, and to see what in us longs to grow further. What seems like a backward glance is at the same time a doorway forward, an initiation into what lies beyond. You see, death is not the end. It is a moment of great understanding, a look into the mirror of the eternal. And so I ask you today, gently, how do you wish to live so that your review will be filled with light? What traces do you want to leave in the hearts of others, in the world, in yourself? If we ask these questions while we are still alive, then the moment of the panorama will not come as a shock, but as a quiet and profound meeting with what we have truly become. After the great life review is complete, that sacred moment in which we are allowed to relive our whole existence, another very meaningful process begins. The dissolution of the etheric body, that subtle, living body which, during earthly life, permeated and sustained the physical body. The etheric body, also called the life body, carries all the processes of life. It guided our heartbeat, our breathing, our metabolism. But it is more than that. It also holds the images of our life, the formative forces of our biography. It bears the traces of all we have experienced, felt, thought, and willed. After death, once the physical body has been left behind, the etheric body remains connected to the soul for a short time. It preserves the impressions of life, like a radiant tapestry of memory. And this tapestry slowly begins to dissolve, not into nothingness, but back into the spiritual world from which it came. Yet before it fully dissolves, something essential takes place. From the etheric body, a kind of extract, an essence of all our experiences, is released. One could say it is the concentrated meaning of our biography, not the outer events themselves, but their inner significance. Everything that truly shaped us, everything we inwardly lived through and transformed, is preserved as spiritual substance. This essence stays with the soul and accompanies it further on its journey. It becomes an inner light, a form of spiritual orientation for the stages to come. What we did out of love, out of striving for truth, beauty, and goodness, this becomes the true treasure we can carry with us. And this treasure helps us endure, learn, and grow beyond the threshold. The rest of the etheric body, the parts of the life images that are not taken into this essence, gradually dissolve. Often these images radiate outward into the surrounding spiritual atmosphere. In this way one can say, our life continues to shine after death. It leaves traces that remain active in the places and among the people where we lived and acted. This is why, my friends, it matters how we live. The images we create do not remain only within us. They continue to work in the world as blessing or as shadow. Some may ask, is this process painful? No, not in the ordinary sense. It is uplifting, sometimes serious and deeply moving, for we feel what was truly essential. It is a letting go, and at the same time a preserving. What fades are the temporary forms. What remains is what we shaped. Inwardly with love and awareness, in this process of the etheric body dissolving, we experience that the soul is not alone. Spiritual beings accompany us, guiding and supporting the transition. Like a child drifting into sleep, yet still sensing its mother's presence, so too the soul feels a protection from the spiritual world as it lays aside this part of its being. What remains is not emptiness, but space, space for what is to come, for the next chapter of the great journey. And so I ask you, gently, what images do you wish to leave behind? What essence should your soul one day carry with it when the etheric body dissolves? It is up to us, here and now, in life, to form the answers. For what we think, what we feel, what we do out of free will, this weaves the spiritual garment that will accompany us. After the physical body has been left behind and the etheric body has slowly dissolved, the human soul enters a new stage of its journey. This stage is of great importance, for now begins the encounter with the spiritual beings who have always accompanied us, even if we were not fully aware of them during earthly life. Freed from the physical and etheric coverings, the soul is sensitive, open, and filled with light. It is like a child seeing the light of the spiritual world for the first time, and what it meets there is not something foreign, but what has always been present, the reality of the spiritual world, which we only dimly sensed during life on earth. At this moment, the human being enters into relationship with higher beings. I call them the higher hierarchies, beings of the third hierarchy, such as angels, archangels, and archai, who work and watch in the spiritual world. They are not beings who judge us, but beings who truly see us. They do not look at what we seemed to be on the outside, but at what we have truly become within. They see the truth of our life. These beings meet the soul with deep, pure love, but also with clarity. In their presence, the soul cannot hide. Everything is revealed. Our thoughts, our motives, our inner intentions. And yet, it is not a time of fear, but a time of truth. The soul begins to recognize where it lived in harmony with the good, the true and the beautiful, and where it fell short. It is like a spiritual conversation, a quiet exchange with these beings who help us understand the meaning of our life. This understanding is not abstract knowledge, but a profound inner experience. One could say the human being now sees itself through the eyes of the spiritual world, and in this vision it begins to grasp that every thought, every feeling, every action leaves an echo in the cosmos. Nothing is lost. Everything continues. Everything weaves on. And from this insight arises a new will, the will to transform, to heal, to grow further. The spiritual beings we meet are also our guides. They not only show us what has been, but also point to what can come. They prepare us for the next stages of existence, for the journey through the spiritual worlds, which anthroposophy describes as the planetary spheres realms where the human being learns, processes, recognizes, and evolves. But before this path can begin, there must be a pause, a quiet reverence standing before the mystery of one's own biography. This pause is necessary, for it forms the bridge between what was and what will be. It is the moment when the soul must hand itself over to the wisdom of the cosmos, to a plan greater than human understanding. In ancient images, one spoke of the scales in which deeds are weighed. But this is not punishment, it is recognition, and recognition brings freedom. For when we truly see ourselves, both our mistakes and our moments of light, then we are free to shape anew. My friends, this meeting with the spiritual beings is the true beginning of the soul's spiritual journey after death. Here the soul becomes a traveler between worlds, and on this path it is not left alone. It is a path of learning, of inner growth, a path to truth, not in the form of dogma, but through direct spiritual vision. I invite you not to see this as a distant picture, but as a real possibility of your own becoming. What do you carry? within yourself that can prepare this path? How do you live today so that your soul can one day walk this path with trust and with light? For what we give to the world, what we shape in love and awareness, will one day become our light in the beyond, and this light will guide us when we take the great step across the threshold. So, I ask you in closing, with what inner images do you wish to meet that moment, when the spiritual beings look upon you with love? Are they images of truth, courage, and compassion? Life prepares the future, even the life beyond. After the soul has left the physical body and entered the spiritual world, an important question arises. What determines how this path continues? Is it chance, destiny, or is there something deeper within us that guides our experience beyond? Rudolf Steiner often emphasized that it is the quality of our inner life, our thoughts, our feelings, our conscious and unconscious connections that act as signposts. In the spiritual world, our thoughts during earthly life are not just inner processes. They are real forces that take on form. A loving thought, born from a free heart, shines far beyond death. A thought shaped by selfishness or indifference casts a shadow. Our human connections, whether conscious or unconscious, also carry weight. After death, the soul remains linked to those with whom it formed strong bonds. This can bring comfort, but it can also bring tasks. Unresolved tensions, unspoken truths, continue to live on and wait for resolution. The state of consciousness we cultivate acts like a light or a fog in the beyond. A person who has practiced living with awareness, thinking with mindfulness, and acting with compassion enters the spiritual world with a certain clarity. Someone who rushes through life, living only outwardly without reflection or inner stillness, often finds themselves disoriented. It is like entering an unknown land. Those who are prepared, who carry inner maps and images, will find their way more easily. Life here is the preparation for life there. This is why it is often said, each day a person should plant a spiritual seed, for that seed continues to grow beyond the threshold. So ask yourself, what thoughts do I carry in my heart? What connections do I nurture? Is my life woven with awareness, compassion, and truth? For all of this, our thoughts, our bonds, our consciousness forms the substance from which our experience beyond is woven, not as punishment, but as a path of growth and further development. Let us therefore shape our lives in such a way that we can cross over in peace with a heart free of regret and with a soul ready to learn. Thank you for listening and for walking inwardly along this path. There is hardly an experience we encounter so naturally every day, and yet that remains so mysterious as sleep. Night after night we enter a state where we leave behind our physical body, where the I and the astral body separate and enter other realms. Have we ever truly asked ourselves what really happens during this time? And why Rudolf Steiner urged us to pay attention to our sleep if we wish to understand death? Sleep, when seen correctly, is the little brother of death. Both lead us out of purely physical existence, sleep for a few hours, death for an entire stage of our spiritual journey. In both, our true being, our spiritual core, steps away from the physical and comes into contact with the spiritual world. During sleep, our I and our astral body return to those spiritual regions from which we come. There we encounter beings, impressions, and experiences that usually remain hidden from our waking consciousness. Yet they work back into us as intuition, inner strength, or sometimes inner unrest. Those who live attentively may sometimes sense that they experienced something in sleep, even if they cannot remember it. Death is a kind of great sleep, but without a return the next morning. And yet, as paradoxical as it may sound, it is not an end, but an awakening. An awakening into the world we only touch in sleep. In death, we become fully conscious of this world and experience it in its complete reality. This means that every night, in a way, we prepare ourselves for death. Every healthy sleep is a spiritual training. Whoever learns to enter the night with inner order, with gratitude and clarity, builds a bridge between the physical and the spiritual world, and this bridge will carry us when the moment of death arrives. That is why I often recommended, end your day with a quiet thought, a prayer, an inner picture of love and peace. For these images accompany you not only through the night, but one day across the threshold of death, and rhythm is essential. Regular sleep, at the same time each night, with mindful preparation, strengthens not only the body but also the soul's connection to the spiritual world. Modern people who have lost their natural rhythms often lose their sense of this bridge. They live only outwardly in noise and distraction. But in the silence of the night, the spiritual world waits, always ready to receive us, the same. Forces that meet us in sleep will also meet us in death. But how consciously we experience them depends on how we have learned to recognize them. Sleep is our teacher. Each night it shows us how to let go, how to trust, and how to be carried. So, ask yourselves tonight, with what thoughts do I fall asleep? With what feelings do I leave my day behind? Is my sleep an escape, or is it a return to something higher? For just as we sleep, so one day we will also die. And whoever honors sleep prepares their soul for the great awakening beyond the threshold. Thank you from my heart for listening with openness. May this insight bring you comfort and a new reverence for the quiet school of the night. Now that we have walked together through the first experiences after death, I invite you to pause once more and ask yourselves, what does it truly mean to prepare for death? Many people fear this transition because it is filled with uncertainty. But as I have often said, whoever lives life with mindfulness and inner truth has no reason to fear death, for they will be carried by what they have built within their soul. Death is not a dark abyss. It is a threshold. And like every doorway, it asks us to cross it consciously, not with fear, but with inner readiness. Every day in which we love, forgive, and act truthfully, we prepare ourselves. Every evening in which we fall asleep with gratitude, we strengthen our spiritual connection. Every moment in which we listen to nature or truly meet another human being is already a step on this path. So I ask you, what do you wish to carry with you one day across this threshold? What do you want to leave behind? And what can already begin today? If these reflections have touched you, I warmly invite you, subscribe to this channel, so that we can continue to explore this path together. Every new contribution is meant to strengthen you, inspire you, and remind you of what truly matters. I thank you from the heart. May your life be filled with meaning, and may your path be guided by light. See you soon in a new chapter of spiritual insight.